going on, you guys? Back again with another video. Today, as you can see behind me, we're going to be working once again on the Toyota Tacoma. And today we're going to be working on installing a Prinsu roof rack. Now, if you guys watched the video where I actually installed my current light bar, some of you guys will remember what I had to do and what I ended up doing to run this wire. To run this wire loom, I actually ended up going into the hole where we're going to need to use, or one of the two holes that we're going to need to use to mount that roof rack. At the time when I installed this light bar, I did not expect to ever get a roof rack. As time went on, this roof rack really grew on me. So fingers crossed, hopefully I didn't mess up the threads in that hole too bad, and I'm able to mount this. I do have a screw tapping kit, so I'm able to clean up the threads and make sure, and hopefully the supplied hardware will work. If not, my plan B is to go get longer hardware of my own with a locking nut and washer on the opposite side inside the cabin, and use that as a way to hold down the brackets that hold the roof rack on this corner. From my understanding, there's going to be 3 bases on each side and 3 different sets of holes on each side. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and build the Prinsu roof rack on that table, and then I'm also going to remove this light bar. Alright, you guys, so I went ahead and kind of dove into this kit a little more, and it's actually really cool. As you can see, a lot of the, or I should say all of the bags are pretty much labeled as far as what is what. This is to mount it. This is just some tie down rings that I myself actually ordered on the side on top of the rack. These look like it's one for the wind deflector, and that's another set of tie down rings. So this piece of rubber here actually goes on your wind deflector up front, and that is basically just to try to keep the wind noise to a minimum as much as possible. So that's definitely going to come in handy. So the mounting hardware for the crossbars onto the 2 sidebars that are actually going to mount this whole rack onto the truck, it looks like it's a T30 bit. It's like a star pattern. And then what you want to do as far as the hardware is you want to go lock, washer, and then a regular washer in that order. So we're going to go ahead and just put it all together. From the research that I was doing, and like I said, I dove into this a little bit more, you want these mounting points on the inside of your rack. For some reason, I have 7 crossbars, but I did realize that I got 1 silver. And I also realized that this 1 silver doesn't have these little openings like the rest of them do. Now, from my understanding, these little openings are a new design to be able to slide in whatever hooks or mounting options you want to go or use on your rack. I guess before, in the older models, you would have to actually take off the whole crossbar off the rack itself to be able to slide in whatever mounting hardware you wanted to use for certain things. So now, like I said, since I noticed that this one's silver and this one doesn't have those cutouts, I'm assuming that this one is the one that actually lines up to your wind deflector plate and mounts onto behind it. From my understanding, this one here will mount here on any 2 holes that you want. It could be the top 2, middle 2, or bottom 2, and that's just basically going to give you adjustment on your wind deflector. So I'm going to go ahead and mount up the rest onto the 2 sidebars on the table, and then we'll pick it up and move it onto the truck. Alright, you guys, so as you can see, I got everything just barely hand tight. All I'm doing right now is making sure that all my mounting holes are exposed, so I'm able to get to them easier once they're on top of the truck. But that's pretty much it. This wind deflector and crossbar that goes up front, I am not going to mount quite yet. I want to get this all up there, and then I want to be able to adjust and slide my crossbars to wherever distance I want to separate them. But I went ahead and I used this long run slit on the side of the 2 main frame bars, just so I have the ability to slide them back and forth as I need. So that's pretty much it. Move it onto the truck. Alright, you guys, so I'm over back at the truck. I already went ahead and disconnected the negative post on my battery. I need to go ahead and remove my 52, I believe it is, 52-inch slide bar with Cali raised LED mounting brackets. I need to go ahead and remove those. As you can see, I already went ahead and snipped the wires. Hurt me quite a bit, but it's all good. I need those gone. So as you can see, I already went ahead and pulled out the wiring loom that I had ran from the engine bay up through my pillar, up into that nut, that mounting nut that I now need And what you have to go ahead and do is grab this weather stripping, remove it back all the way. As you can see, I had already used silicone, so I'm gonna need to clean all this up and make sure that that hole in there is the hole that I was talking about, that I kind of drilled out a little bit to make room for this wiring harness to go through. So I need to retap that screw hole and make sure that that hole is gonna accept the provided hardware to mount the rack onto the top of the truck. If it does not, then I'm gonna have to go out and buy a longer bolt, same size as the one that comes with the kit, longer bolt, and my own lock nut from underneath, and just try to squeeze my hand in there. You can kind of see the hole. Alright, you guys, as you can see, I went ahead and cleaned up all 5 holes, all 5 mounting holes for the roof rack. I went ahead and also got the required hardware that I was going to need for that one hole that I had already drilled out. While I was at Home Depot, I bought these cutters that should cut through this weather stripping pretty easily. Now, while it looks like it's just rubber, there's actually like a metal strip running down the middle of this whole thing which makes it a little tougher. Originally, I was just going to use my Dremel with the cutting wheel, but this should make for a way cleaner cut. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, just to get a better idea of how these things are going to mount, I'm going to go ahead and bring the roof rack over, put it in place. If I'm not mistaken, the whole bracket's going to cover this whole middle piece. I just want to make sure if I need to cut just these pieces, or maybe if I could just cut just the holes, but I'm assuming I'm going to have to cut this whole piece. So I'm just going to mount it up, see where it's going to sit. Then I'm going to go ahead and mark my cuts on this, put this back into place, and then we'll move forward with mounting the roof rack. Alright, you guys, so those cutters actually worked really good. As you can see, I still got all my wire stripping in place. I just had to cut out the edges to be able to fit the spacers. Now, the way it's looking like here, the roof rack itself is going to sit on top of these black spacers. So that's exactly what it's going to look like once the roof rack is on. Now, for these middle pieces, I was thinking of maybe just throwing a little bit of silicone underneath it, just to have it give it some sort of adhesion, because there's really nothing holding these in. So maybe I could see that from the factory you got like some double-sided tape down here. So I'm thinking maybe just throw a little bit of silicone underneath, and hopefully that'll just be enough to hold it down in place. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side, to that weather stripping, and those cutters actually worked out great. So that may be a really good tool to pick up if you are doing this by yourself or at home. But I will say, maybe get something that has a little bit of a longer opening. That way you could get one full cut and on one motion. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Alright, you guys, so I just fully finished one side. All I went ahead and did is use some blue tape, double-sided tape, and some silicone, just to kind of hold all these rubber pieces in place. Now, I don't know if this is really necessary, nor do I know if it's gonna work out, but I think this extra little step in time that I'm taking is gonna make it look that much nicer once we're all complete. So I just got to move on to the driver's side, finish that up the exact same way, and then we're finally ready to fill in our mounting holes with some more silicone to prevent any water from getting into the cabin. And then we're ready to mount, finally, the roof rack. Alright, you guys, so I went ahead and finished up on both sides with this weather stripping. So now we're going to move on to the next step, where we're basically getting ready to mount the roof rack onto the truck. Now, one thing I did want to point out is one of the steps is you got to put a whole lot of this silicone, or a very good amount, into the mounting holes, just to make sure that no water is going to go into the cabin. So we're going to go ahead, apply a nice amount to every hole, and then on every hole we're basically just going to put this mounting spacer on top of the hole at every single one, and then we're going to go ahead and grab the rack, put the rack on top of these spacers, and then begin to screw in the hardware. And that should be pretty much it.
Got it?
Yeah. I hope that's a bird poop.
What?
On your head.
Well, that's where this is it.
What they got. This is it.
There it is, you guys. Roof rack is 100% on and installed. I'm gonna go ahead and leave those tapes on overnight, just so I can make sure that that silicone dries up pretty well underneath those wither stripping. Everything's tight on my crossbars. As you can see, this is what I was talking about, that tail. If you have the satellite antenna tail, this back crossbar, you're gonna have to mount it vertically, but it's still cool. It'll still give you a rail if you wanted to mount any accessories onto it. So that's pretty much it. Everything went on pretty nicely. That hardware that I had to use for that front left bolt, it was kind of rough to get my hand up in there, but luckily I was able to install the locking washer, a washer and a nut on the bottom side. Pretty damn strong, as you can see. So that pretty much does it for this video. I know I said I was going to install the light bar as well, but I figured the light bar install is going to be a little more tedious, so I'll make a whole nother video of that. So stay tuned for that one. That's pretty much it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.